Welcome to the Islamic Library Association. We are dedicated to showcasing Muslims' rich contributions to literature and society while advocating for accurate representation and equity in libraries. Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Khalisah Harris. I am a librarian and the founder of the Islamic Library Association, which advocates for the equitable representation of Islamic faith-based literature. We also highlight the contributions that Muslims make within the literary landscape. We want to thank you for tuning in to our conversation. Today we are here with author Mariyam Ali Azzam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. So, Mariam is the author of three children's books. She is the acquisitions editor for the Institute for Muslim Advancement and Renewal and leads the children's program called Polished Mirror. She also serves as a mentor for the Nizami program. Mariam is a homeschooling parent and considers it her most important role to be her daughter's teacher. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mariam. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk to your esteemed personality. I love the work that you do at Islamic Library Association, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, you do a lot. You're very busy, very talented. So, let's just jump right into this. And I would love for you to first tell us about your books, their names, and what age group they're intended for.
So, I have three books that are published in print right now. Nusayba Knows Her Worth is the first one that I published, and then there was Our Butterflies in the Quran, and now Hidden Secrets. I am a person who, when it comes to age ranges, I find them kind of like, I never find them to quite fit, but I would say maybe 4 to 9 is generally the age range. The new one that I have, Hidden Secrets, is like a short chapter book. So that one would be appealing to a little bit of an older age group, maybe 6 to 10-ish. Though I like to say, and I have this on my website and stuff, what I like to say is that I write books for children and the adults who educate them. So I feel that the books that I write, the audience I have in mind is also the adult who's probably going to be reading it to the kid.
Mhm. Nice, nice. So, can you tell us a bit about your writing process and how you balance your roles as an author, an editor, and an educator?
What balance? I don't know that there's any balance. I try. Um, I homeschool full time, and so that is I have to prioritize. That's my first priority. And I wake up in the morning, I just make sure that I set that time. And this is when we're doing school. We're moving into the classroom, and I don't compromise on that. So then, other things have to give, like household chores, things like that. If I stay up late if I have an idea that's gripped me and I want to write it down before I forget it. And then I have like specific days of the week where I go into Tarbiyah for every other Friday. We have our Polish Mirror program with the children. And then every Friday I have Nizami. And then with the editor role, that's a very new role for me with IMAR, the Institute of for Muslim Advancement and Renewal. And so that is very much a startup environment. So we have not, other than our own, the three books that we already have, we don't have any new books that we're publishing yet, but we are just in the process of developing our process for intaking manuscripts. So we have had people in our community approach us who will say, I have this great book idea and I want to submit it. So I say, hold up. I'm an auditor before I was anything else. And so I'm like, we need a process. I can't just like take it. We're going to have to make sure we have a one channel through which we do intake. We're going to set up the criteria and then we'll bring them in and we'll review them carefully and thoughtfully. I don't want it to become haphazard. So right now we're in this phase. And so there's no schedule around that. It's just kind of all over the place.
Hmm.
Um, but then that's just all the different roles. Now, when it comes to writing process, I would say my process is inspiration and then just like a simmer of like, okay, how I have this idea, something just popped into my head. Now I'm just like, it might be months sometimes where I'm just like collecting little tidbits. I'm like, oh, maybe I'd write this in there. Maybe I'd put this in there. I just write a bunch of notes, and then I'll probably have a burst of energy where I'll just like start typing everything out. I'm like, okay, I got like a hook, something that I know I can start from, and I'll just keep going. And then probably a long lull where I'm like, I don't know how to finish this book.
Mhm.
And then I like to think of it as like epiphany. Like all of a sudden, like there it is. There's my ending. There's my closure. And that's usually how it works. And then once I grip the idea, I'm just like Rania, who's the illustrator who's done three of my books. I love her. She's so talented, mashallah. And I'm just like, I have this idea. This is going to be the story. Can you do my illustrations? I start talking to her on the side while the story is still being edited and in process. And she'll start working on the illustrations. And then I am a person who's very seize the day. I'm just like, as soon as it's ready, I want to put it out there.
Yes. So you go through a lot of work, time, highs, not so high. You go through these different emotions, experiences, and things, and different lengths of time to do everything that you're doing to get this finished product, as your book. How do you hope that your books will impact young readers, particularly Muslim children?
So when it comes to Muslim children, what I want them to get out of my books, and I think like when you read them, you'll kind of notice like the theme is that I want them to feel encouraged to ask questions about Islam. Like I want them to feel that their curiosity does not have to be limited to just secular subjects, and Islam is like this like off limits thing where you don't ask any questions, you just accept what somebody taught you, and then you just like memorize that information for the rest of your life and you believe. And I'm like, well, that's all great, but like I would love for children to have intellectual accord with Islamic concepts. And so like Hidden Secrets is all about the unseen and al-ghaib. And I try to present this information in a way where I feel like it has relevance to their daily life. So it's, children as they grow up, they learn stories of prophets, they learn stories of Sahaba, they learn a lot of stories about people who lived a long time ago,
Hmm.
who are all adults. Um, you learn a little bit about children in the Prophet ﷺ's life and stuff, but generally you're learning stories about adults and you're teaching them to children for lessons. I like to have, like in our Butterflies in the Quran and in Hidden Secrets, my characters are their children who come to some discovery and then they understand some Islamic concept with a little more depth because of it. And so that is like it's in a setting that they're familiar with. Um, like for example, with Hidden Secrets, the reason I wrote the book is because my daughter said, "What are shooting stars?" And it started as like a very benign question, but then I was like, okay, let me get her the answer from NASA, like the official thing. And then I said, well, let me also try to see if there's like a good verse from the Quran or something from the Hadith that I can tie to this. And then I was like, well, these are two completely different things. How am I gonna? I'm not just gonna be like, hey, shooting stars are rocks that fall from space. Oh, and also they're rocks that angels throw at the shayateen to prevent them from eavesdropping on like the secrets of the heavens. I'm like, well, that's I can't just say those things and think she's just gonna be like cool and move on. I'm gonna have to write a whole story about this to reconcile everything.
Hmm.
Um, and so I remembered that my daughter, when she was a baby, like between 1 and 2, her nanny used to take her on walks a lot, Shanu. And she used to always come home with a rock all the time and they would just pile them on our counters. My husband's like, where are these rocks coming from? And I was like, well, Shanu said that Nuseba found it and she thought this rock was really cool.
Hmm.
And so she's just like, I didn't want to make her put it away. So she brings them and and it just like hit me. I was like, well, this is the perfect hook for my story about the shooting stars. So the girls are going to find a rock and it's going to be a meteorite. And then they're going to explore shooting stars and we're going to bring it and we're going to tie it into Islam. And alhamdulillah, I think it resulted in something like, I always learn a lot when I'm writing this myself. And I think a lot of people will learn from it.
Nice. That's beautiful. So that's the writer and the educator kind of all going in one, using
Yeah,
you like as
exactly.
mom. And, oh, she has her rocks she collects every day. And we're going to tie this into a lesson plan that actually turns into a book, to
Right.
publish,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
publish.
And like when I say lessons plan, like yeah, when you say that, exactly, like literally the end of the book, I was just like, well, now this book needs a little bit of back matter where we're just gonna have learning objectives. Like here's what I'm trying to teach in every single one of these chapters, something you can teach about al-ghaib or something about the attributes of Allah and Allah's creation. And then here's some suggestions on how you can take this learning a little bit further. Here's maybe a project you might do.
Hmm.
I'm totally. It's like I see this book actually in a setting of being used in an educational setting, like maybe in an Islamic school when they're
Hmm.
teaching about the unseen and elements of the unseen, like angels and just qadr and the all of these things that we don't see but we know exist because we are Muslims and we
Yes.
believe. Um, so I see this used in an educational setting. I also see it. A friend of mine, actually, and you know her from Buruj Library.
Hmm.
She is releasing some curriculums about space and astronauts, and so she
Hmm.
has incorporated my book in there, and it just kind of adds like this backdrop against which we can like look at these things like in space and all these wonders and bring it back to this understanding of how it all ties back to Allah.
Yes. That's beautiful. I think that's just amazing how you were able to do all that. But what role do you think children's literature plays in shaping the identities and worldviews of Muslim children?
So I think it's complicated because I think there's a lot of potential for it to play a very deep role in like the ideas that they develop very early on and foundational beliefs.
Hmm.
However, I think that depends on how much of a reading family the children live in. I know like there are a lot of families where they don't read a lot together, and so the only time the children are really exposed to a lot of books is at school when their
Hmm.
teacher is reading to them. The parents are not that interested in reading, or maybe sometimes books are expensive. People don't want to spend money on books and stuff. So maybe if somebody gifted it to them, they'll have it, but they wouldn't go out of their way to search for the literature. I
Hmm.
think that's changing. I think I see a lot more people more interested, especially I see that now that there's so many Islamic books and representation that people are
Yes.
developing more interest.
Yes.
So I think that might be, I mean, I think it's key. Like for me, it's just like literally since the day I brought my daughter home, I was just reading her a million books like all the time.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine like a day where we're not reading together.
Hmm. Yeah, it's to piggyback off what you said about finding, Muslims are finding more interest in reading because there's so many Islamic books. And that's exactly what the Islamic Library Association aims to do, is to highlight that these books exist. So from a public librarian perspective, the books don't exist. So
Right.
it's almost as if we're asking for equity of something that doesn't exist. No, it does exist. They should be included within these collections for the
Right.
public. So, you know, Islam encompasses a wide range of ethnicities and cultures, and it's essential to recognize that not all Muslims are Arab. Do any of your books reflect this diversity, showcasing the varied experiences and perspectives within the Muslim world?
So I think that's really important for sure to reflect all of our diverse ethnicities, especially like some of the ones that even like, I mean, I'm South Asian, so like, I'm not Arab, but I'm also like a very commonly seen type of a Muslim. However, I think I spoke to you about this before. Like, I'm Indian, and so if I'm looking in a library and I'm like, let me find a book about an Indian family, it's almost never going to be about a Muslim Indian family. I'm not going to be represented in that. Now, that said, I haven't written a book like that, but I
Mhm.
feel that the books that I write, I mean, I'm writing them from my experience. Like I
Yes.
am an Indian American, I am a
Hmm.
Muslim, and this is just how I view the world, and so I put it into a book. Um, and so in that way, it contributes towards the
Hmm.
diversity. However, I have some future books that I have kind of started writing and then stopped, and we'll start over, but those will have more. I intend to show a little bit more of the culture in there.
Hmm.
Actually, this would be an interesting conversation we can have maybe extended later, but
Yes,
I went
definitely.
back and forth in my mind. I have like five different characters in this book, and first I thought I want to make them not all, I don't want them all to be Indian and Pakistani
Hmm.
because like I want to represent more Muslims, but then I was like, but then well, do I have a right to write a character who is African American or who is Palestinian or who is something else? Like I want my friend group in my book to be diverse, but then I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to speak for cultures that are not my own. So
Aspirations.
I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that. I haven't decided yet. It's just like a thought, something that's simmering in my mind.
I'm sure it'll come to you. You know, all you've done thus far, I'm sure it'll come to you how you want to go about dealing with that. And no matter what you decide, I will be very happy to see the end product.
Yeah.
We'll make something nice. So,
Yeah. One other thing though I did in my book was so like I feel that sometimes and it's not that I don't want to showcase my own culture, but I also want my ideas to just apply to any Muslim. I want any Muslim, especially Muslim girls. So I look at my book and like pick it up and it's like, oh, I can relate to this. And
mhm,
so in that way, I really kind of almost intentionally don't really include a lot of cultural things. But like, for example, in Hidden Secrets, I'll have them like on a trip and I'm just like, okay, they're eating like kebab rolls. And I'm like, that could be anybody. I'm like, this could be Indian, this could be maybe an Afghan family, this could be maybe an Arab family, this could be a lot of people who might be eating this food. I'm like, so I just want to like reach as many people as I can with
mhm,
my books. Like with our butterflies in the Quran, I based it on my niece Sephora. That's why the character's name is Sephora, and she is half black, half Indian. And I give her picture to the illustrator. And I said, make my character look like this. I'm like, this could look like anybody, but like to me, I know it's her, but
yes.
it's not very overt in here. And it doesn't really show like her parents or anything like that. But
Mhm.
I suppose in the future, I can think about like showing the more diverse families and things like that.
Yeah, that's amazing though. So, you have three books. Were they all published the same? I know you said you had the same illustrator.
I use the same illustrator, so I am there. The first two, they're totally self-published. Like, so I have an idea. I went out and I kind of did a little crowdsourcing to get some ideas on who are some illustrators out there, and then a friend recommended a few of them. One of which was Rania, who I loved her style, and so I worked with her on Nuseba Knows Her Worth, and then like after that, I continued to work with her on the others, and then she'll do everything for me, all the technical stuff, and I just like publish the books.
Mhm.
Um, with Hidden Secrets, this one is a little different. So I had sent it to our Imam Aziz, and to just like ask him to read it and give me some feedback on it. And he said, we're starting this new thing, Ermar, the Institute for Muslim Advancement and Renewal, and we would love to be the ones to publish your book with our organization instead. And I was like, okay. I was like, I like the vision. I like where you guys are going. And so we decided to take it that way. And I decided to publish with them this time instead of just on my own. So I think, in the future, we'll probably do more publishing with Aymar.
That's great. So, at this time, are any of your books available in any public spaces, such as libraries, schools?
Because I'm such a haphazard person, like I said, and I just do this stuff on my own, I never even really looked into how to even get them into the library. But one of my friends from Library was also telling me, like, hey, I'm going to request your books at the public libraries because you can do that for a certain number of books, like as long as the library has the funding. And I was like, I should do that. I have never done it, so I highly doubt that they are in any kind of library right now. But I would love to see my books in a library someday. Um, and I think you and I had this conversation in the past where I'm usually the books I see in the library about Muslims are the same books that I'll see at Barnes and Noble and the same books I'll see anywhere else, and there's no difference and there's no variety. And I'm just like, I mean, these are wonderful books for sure, but like I would like to see a little bit. My books are overtly Islamic, so they're Muslim, but they're like about Islamic theology, Islamic history, and things like those are not the books you see generally for children in a library. Like you don't, for example, you might see a book about hijab, but it's a lot toned down. It's not like it's not going to be like about the requirements of hijab, like why do we wear hijab, anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, I like to write books that are very detailed and like this is where somehow it gets to like this is what the Quran says, like oh the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this. Like these are like core beliefs. They're more theological, they're more religious, and they don't reach to like a wide audience. They're kind of, someone who's secular might not be so interested in reading it. They might not read it in a public school, but I would still like it to be at a public library if that's possible.
Yes, and then it should be. Your books are, if there were any other religion, you'd see it in a public space, such as a library or a school. So your books are not textbooks. So yes, they would belong in a public library. So, if they're more just very hardcore strict, then that it would still belong in a specialty library, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, no,
So
that's right what you're saying. If it was a different religion, you would see it like because my daughter and I, we were reading Magic Tree House,
mhm,
and it was talking about within there just like some beliefs of like the indigenous, like Native American people and how they believe in the Great Spirit and things like that. And I was like, I don't think I've ever picked up a book from like a library or something that you see in the mainstream where they would just talk in like in a very there was like a nice respectful manner of like talking like this is their belief, right? Like nobody really says like, oh, you don't see a children's book where it's like Muslims believe in Allah and they believe that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final prophet. It's kind of like that feels too heavy and it
mhm,
feels like, oh, you're pushing religion all of a
yeah,
sudden. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I'm putting my religion out there because that's my identity, but
yes.
I'm yeah.
So we have to take into consideration, like Dr. Rudine Bishop said, books should be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Why are we able to see everybody but no one can see us? And why, when we talk about our religion, why is it considered conversion material,
Yeah.
or they only show nonfiction, for Ramadan or Eid? Like,
Yes.
as if we can't have fiction, romance, you know,
Right.
young adult books, or even adult, even if it's nonfiction, doesn't mean that it's a religious scripture book. There's self-help books. We should be able to see ourselves and allow others to see us from our stories, not from what someone else has said about us.
Right. And I love that you said like self-help and stuff. So with Imar, that's what we're doing. Like my book is a children's book that we're publishing, but the other two are they are for adults. And one of them is like a self-help book where it's, I mean, taking concepts of self-help from Islam, and Islamic spirituality. Harmony is the name of the book, The Making of a Good Life. And it's just talking about through Quran and Sunnah, like, how you can make your relationship stronger with others and how that makes your life better. And then the other one is about so this one is actually the most interesting. It's about from our book, "The Light We Lost" by Mashal Ayubi. It's all about Sharia and like her personal. It's a memoir. Her personal experience growing up as like an Afghan American in America post nine
Yes.
11, how she viewed Sharia, how it like her definition changed, how she learned about it. But if you and I went right now to the library and typed in Sharia, that's not what we're gonna see.
Yeah. Yes. But
You're
again,
gonna
that
see
comes
all the
from
people who are gonna is gonna be like the evils of creeping Sharia or something like that,
it
like very
actually
sinister.
it's actually very anti-Islamic, and they'll categorize it as Islamic. I'm like, no, that's not Islam,
Right.
So and that's why I feel it's so important for us to have our stories there, especially when libraries, have the whole equity claim. How are you equitable if you're excluding a whole entire group of people? And
Right.
so there have been times when I've brought that up about like equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm like, oh, well, it's normally discussing race. I'm like, okay, but there's Muslims across every race. So,
Yeah.
how are you showing these races, but not the Muslims within these races? Now we've gone through every avenue. Now we're specifically talking about the Muslims. Now don't try
Right.
to fudge it. We know what's happening. So that's all that to
Right. And,
say.
and, and I, honestly, race is like a lot of it is perception. It's like whether even if we're not a race, they do kind of treat us as a race and group. Others will group us as if we are a single race, make assumptions about us as if we are a single race, and conclusions about us, and like put books out there about Muslims in America and whether we can be like trusted and all these kinds of things. And it's like if I look up Islam, I'm not going to see books that are us talking about ourselves. It's going to be other people talking about us like we're some kind of academic like study, and it's not going to be very impartial either.
But that's why people such as yourself write these books, and they should be accessible to everyone. And that's what the Islamic Library Association aims to do. So, you know, for whoever has seen your books, that's great. We're trying to get it also to the people who have not seen it yet. We will make sure that everyone has access to your books because they're good and they're needed. And people should see your books in society where the Muslims are. We're in these societies, in these communities.
Right.
So your work is definitely needed in the world, not just in one library, not just in one school. not just in one community, but nationally available to everyone because it's important. And so it is your work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there are so many like Muslims with like all these ideas and things. They just don't know kind of where to start. Like, if I wanted to put an idea, how would I get started? How would I get it to the library and things like that? And I think there's not a lot of access for us when it comes to traditional publishing sometimes, which is why I've chosen to go through self-publishing in the past. It's like I'll submit my manuscript and I'm like, while I'm working on my book or something, and I'm like, if it doesn't get picked up, I'm still going to publish because I'm not going to
Yes,
allow that to stop me.
yes. There are many barriers, and that's what we're trying to do is remove those barriers to allow Muslims the opportunity to be seen in the very spaces that you're working in already.
Right.
So, from the books that you've had and from the people who've seen it, can you share any feedback or responses that you've received from whether it's readers, parents, educators, or anyone who's read your book? What's been the feedback?
So I get a lot of feedback from parents where they're like, I didn't know this information. Like when they've
Mm,
read Nasiba Knows Her Worth and Our Butterflies in the Quran, and they're like, wow, I learned a lot, which is what I love because, like as I say, they are actually my audience too. Like as I'm writing it, I'm always writing in terms of like I think about things the way I read with my kids. I read with them and we talk about things and we learn it and we're doing it together. I'm thinking that when you're reading my book, you're doing the same thing, and so I'm thinking you're the audience too. And so they seem to uh, they seem to learn a lot from the books themselves. And that's not because I think I'm like a scholar or like I'm smarter or anything like that, but it's just like I just have like a particular way of looking at something and like just honing in on like one very like minute detail, but it kind of it will make things it kind of opens your mind to something you didn't know before. Like with Our Butterflies in the Quran, before I wrote this book, I didn't know about the tafsir where it talks about the Sidratul Muntaha and that it was covered in, I'm giving away the ending of the book, but it's covered in golden butterflies. And I was like, that's amazing to me. I discovered this, and other parents will want to discover it too. So I'm going to put this in a book.
nice,
So yeah, that's something. I do think there are always critics too. Some
of course.
people think that maybe my books are the language is more complicated for like the smaller kids. I'm like I said, I'm a person I don't really believe in like age ranges because I really like a broad range of things with my daughter. And if we need to stop and talk about what does this word mean, we will. Or if I need to clarify like a concept or something, then we'll do that. And I'm like, good, she learned something else new today.
Yes.
So overall, the people when I go to like a reading, like at a masjid or a library or anything like that, the kids and the parents they really enjoy the books a lot. They love the story of Nusayba bint Ka'ab, and many people actually didn't know it before. Like when I go to the masjid and I read it, they're like, "Oh, I've never knew about this Sahabiya. I never knew that she went to the Prophet ﷺ and she said." Why doesn't Allah mention women in the Quran? And then this ayah was revealed. Like that's amazing. And it's because I'm very selective and I've chosen like these things that it's called Nusayba Knows Her Worth because even though I'm telling like a very old 1400-year-old story, I want the lesson that comes out of it to be something that they can all relate to and apply. Like when I wrote it, when I read her story myself and I wrote it, I was like, I need to show that there was this woman who was so bold
Yes,
that
she
she went and
was.
asked on this question, and
Mhm,
she was like, "Oh,
mhm.
all these men are going to
Yes,
pledge oath. Well, I'm inviting myself to come along and do this too." And
yes.
I was like, that is the boldest thing ever. So daring, so
Mhm.
brave. And I was like, I want like young girls to see that and young boys. I think boys should see that too. That when we're talking about like things like a warrior, I don't want you to only imagine Khalid ibn Walid. I want you to imagine Nusayba bint Ka'ab. Like that's a warrior too, like an
Yes.
actual on the battlefield warrior.
Mhm. I love her story. I do.
I love it
Um,
so much. When I read it, I was like, one day if I have a daughter, that will be her name. Like,
and there you go. That's really nice, mashallah. What you mentioned a little bit ago that you weren't sure if your books were in libraries. Do you think that your books should be in library? Tell us why you think your book specifically should be in the library.
I'm like, well, number one, yes, 100% because they're my books and I love them. Um, but number two, because I think that they just give like an actual real insight into how Muslims think. So even a non-Muslim should be able to read it and understand where we're coming from. Like I said, in Magic Treehouse, if we can understand that other people believe in, if we can openly talk about other people's beliefs and in like a nice like way with like some reverence and stuff for their beliefs, we should be able to do that about Muslims too. A teacher should be able to read a story in her classroom about Muslim kids and like how they believe in the unseen, because you would talk about that about anybody else and think it's really cool. Well, yes, we believe in things that are unseen, and we see things like nature and space and stuff as in just like signs of Allah's power, which is like so beyond our perception that these are what seems so vast in space and so amazing is actually only a fraction of what he can do. You should understand that that's how Muslims view the world. If you want to understand the people around you, you should come at them in the way that they understand it, not only in the watered down way of how I can explain to you my religion without sounding too religious.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it is religious because we are religious. We are a religious people.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned, some challenges or barriers when it comes to getting published the traditional way. What advice would you give to an upcoming Muslim author?
I sometimes I worry that a lot of people have asked me actually, even in my community, they're like, would you want to do a workshop with a lot of people are interested in writing things, and I'm sometimes get worried because I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this or give you advice because I haven't been traditionally published,
Mhm.
but I will say that like if I were to give someone advice, I would be like, if you really feel strongly about your work and you feel that you've done your best work and like you feel you have something important to say, don't worry about like things like sales and things like popularity or anything like that when it comes to your book. Put your book out there. There are so many avenues through which you can self-publish and see your work. And inshallah, through Imad, we're going to try to help some people in our community who are very passionate about their writings to publish more. And that's what my role is going to be with the acquisitions editor, is to take in those manuscripts and see if there's any potential where either we can publish it or we can try to like at least help guide them through some steps and like point them through to some places where they might want to submit their manuscript to publish. But definitely don't give up. And even if you do publish a book and it doesn't just take off, I mean, there are people who publish 15 books before they finally have something that takes off, several books. So it's okay. The way that I see my books is like I said, there are some critics. I don't really like respond to any like critics because I'm just like, I mean, I wrote this book in the style that I write and the way that I see the world. So I can't change that. So I will just like I'll continue to work on books and I'll continue to put them out there. And I really see it as like, even when one person comes to me at the masjid and they say something like, oh my God, I learned this new hadith, or I like, you really made like open my eyes to something new. I'm like that. I'm mission accomplished. I'm
Yes.
done. Like sadaqah jariyah, like inshallah, like they're gonna teach it to somebody else, and I'm gonna get some reward for this, and do it with the right intention. For if you're writing a book about Islam, especially, then do it with the intention of Allah's reward, and inshallah, you won't care if it becomes widespread or becomes like some kind of bestseller or anything like that. You will feel the contentment.
Yes. So you did bring up, that there are some critics, as part of anything. Um, but can you discuss any specific challenges or obstacles that you faced while writing and or publishing your books?
Um, my first one was just so like spontaneous that I wouldn't even say there was any obstacles because it was like I wrote it, I sent it to my illustrator, she illustrated it, and I just put it out there. Um, I only read like I didn't get that many reviews or anything like that, but there was like one person who reviewed it who wasn't that fond of it, and I was just kind of like,
Oh,
and that it was more navigating like, what do I do with this? Like, am I supposed to like defend my work, or am I supposed to move on? And my husband's like, it's okay if everyone doesn't like it. Like, you like and you read it to these kids and you go to the masjid and you do this and they benefit from it, and that's important. And I don't know, like I feel like one thing you learn is like to let critiques sometimes roll off your back. That doesn't mean that I don't think I'm going to do better every single time moving forward. But I also just like don't take it too much to heart. I'm just kind of like, if you didn't like my rhyme, it's okay. Like I don't like every book I read, and that's okay. Sometimes I don't even like books that a lot of people love, like they love it and you read it and you're like, I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. It's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. There's a million books that are top sellers, bestsellers, and I'll go to read it and be like, I didn't even finish it. Like, I could not
Yeah.
even get past the first 50 pages, you know? So, again, yes. But that goes part of giving people options of what they want to read.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Muslims should have that opportunity as well to have books that we want to read that are meaningful to us for whatever reason it may be.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, like there are, I'm not trying to be like, I want to be like diplomatic. There's like some books you get from sometimes they're published like in foreign countries or something like Islamic books that are like really, really like the language is not right, because it's translation or something else and it's really but people have them in their houses and they're reading so it's like so your book deserves to be out there too. Go ahead and put your book out there. It's
Yes.
okay. It'll
So,
be okay if it's not perfect. It'll be okay if everybody doesn't love it.
yeah, definitely. Um, it just adds to the variety.
Right, exactly. And actually, I keep talking about our moderate because I'm always working on this stuff. But one thing that we are trying to do is like we're trying to create like more access, not just like for people who want to write, but for people who want to read like something that's maybe outside of the norm, like, okay, this is not coming from the ivory towers of like academia where you have to be an Islamic scholar to be able to digest this information or something like that. If somebody in our community submits something that we think is worthy, and even if they're not themselves like some kind of professor or PhD or something, but the work is good and they have their ideas organized and they're communicating their ideas in a clear way that we think that other people might be interested in ideas, we would want to help them publish that. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get out. We're actually like a think tank, so we have. It's not announced yet, but we have some things coming up where people will have an opportunity to submit some work and things like that. And when we do that, we're not only trying to limit it, like I said, to people who are only like the top professional in their field or something like that. If you feel you have something worth saying, we want to hear it and we want to read it.
Perfect. So, what do you hope that readers take away from your stories? And how do you think your books can contribute to a more nuanced understanding of Muslim experiences, cultures?
Um, so I think that they contribute in just that like Nusayba knows her worth is like about a sahabiya, so that's like historical. So I'm gonna like leave that one out of the conversation for a minute. But like, well, actually, no, even that, it's like if somebody who's not a Muslim and doesn't care about Islamic history even reads that book, they should be able to get out of it that Nusayba bin Ka'b was like an empowering female figure in Islamic history. That we actually have a history of that, of women who are bold and daring and brave and courageous and all of those things, and who were respected by our Prophet ﷺ. Like one of my favorite, this is actually not even in the book, but one of my favorite stories about Nusayba bin Ka'b is that sometimes when the Prophet ﷺ used to see her somewhere, he would tell people like, Mara, like Nusayba, she was braver than so and so guy, so and so man at the Battle of Uhud. Like he would like go out of his way to praise her and stuff. And I just like love that. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And that's not the way that Islam is perceived, but it
Yeah.
is the way that it was practiced by our Prophet ﷺ. And so I want to show Islam like as Muslims see it, like from I want to present it in the way that we live and breathe it every day. So like in our butterflies in the Quran, the young girl, she's curious about everything, science and everything else, but she's also curious about the Quran. And so she sees her Quran teacher as like a source of knowledge and stuff. And her teacher is also a person who guides her in like the kindest way and in like a way that helps her understand herself better, helps her share her own knowledge. And then Hidden Secrets is like a pair of sisters who would be very relatable to anybody, Muslim or not Muslim. They're two sisters. They love space. They love to explore. They go stargazing with their parents, who are portrayed in a way that they're how how many Muslims see their parents, very nurturing,
Yes.
very educating, who are knowledgeable, who know about things, and who they turn to for questions about not just Islam. And when they do turn to them about questions about Islam, the they come the parents present it in the most loving manner.
Yes.
It's not always like, oh, these are rules of Islam and stuff. It's like, no, sometimes like your parents are communicating like beautiful things about Allah and things to you, but sometimes when you read about Muslim parents in books or if you see them on TV or anything like that, there's just like as if they're like the sternest, never smiling, like all they are is like about religious rules and how it's so shameful
Hmm.
if you break the rules and that's it. And that's how people perceive Muslims and our parents and things like that.
Hmm.
I want them to see through my books like that's not how we see the elders and parents, and that's not how people treat children in our culture.
Yes. Yes. This is why it's so important. But yes. um, do you have any? I know you have some upcoming projects, but do you have any that you can share? Any small details about it, even if it's anything?
I've never shared a lot of information about this before, but I am thinking about writing and I started writing this as a certain type of a chapter book, but then I decided I wanted to try to do it as a middle grade chapter book. So I'm starting all over and I have not even started typing yet, but I'm trying to write like actually like a series following five like very brilliant Muslim girls, and just like certain little adventures that they go on. They all have like a different set of skills and strengths and things like that, and they're all going to be friends. Um, and so I'm working on that, but I'm also not working on it. Like I haven't had the, like I said, there's inspiration, but then there's lull. I'm just like, I don't know now where to start again. And I'm waiting
Mhm.
for the epiphany moment so I can start getting like back in there and just start writing. But, yeah, I'm really inspired by writing things that I think that my daughter will be able to read soon. So I'm just like, okay, what stage is she at in life? I'm gonna write this so that when she's at that age, she's gonna be excited to get this book and read it.
Nice. I love it. So, you have some upcoming projects.
Yeah,
You
well,
also have,
one I didn't mention. I
oh,
sometimes feel a little bit I feel unjust because everything that I do right now revolves around Niseba because she's the one who's like in the classroom learning. She's 5, she reads and all that. But I have a smaller one, Halima, and so I do want to one day write a book about Halima Sa'diya, the Prophet ﷺ's foster mother. But there's not a lot of information about her, so I'm working on it. That's like an idea in my mind. But I
okay.
feel that I have time to do that until my daughter Halima is old enough to understand that I'm writing a book about her namesake.
That's beautiful. See, now we got two upcoming projects coming on, so that's great. So, just between those two and the books you've already written, where can people find your work?
So my books are actually all three of them are on Amazon, but Hidden Secrets is also available on imar.org, imar.org. And yeah, the other we haven't like really put it out there yet that it was on Amazon yet, just because we wanted people to buy through our organization, just because a lot of people they're willing to wait and avoid Amazon if they
Yes,
can.
yes.
And so we would love for you all to buy from mr.org, but I know that there are a lot of Muslims who are like, why isn't it on Amazon? Like, I want to buy it, but if it's not on Amazon, like they buy everything from Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, and then we are in talks with like some bookstores and stuff. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll be announcing soon like some other channels through which they can be purchased.
Okay. Perfect. Is there any way someone can reach out to you on any, are you on any social media platforms?
The best way to reach out to me is probably Instagram. Like I check it all the time. That's really the only social media I use.
Mhm.
And my handle on there is mariyamazzam.author. And then I have a website, goldenbutterflybooks.com. And
Mhm.
sometimes I write little blogs on there if I just have the moment of like feeling like I want to write something or share something about either something fun with my daughter that I learned, something with homeschooling or something about one of my books. So I'll put that all on there.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you that I personally love your work. I'm sure there are many other people who love it as well. And we'd love to have more people have access to your books. And that's all that I have for you today. I just want to let you know that we appreciate your time. And is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just wanted to say, thank you for having me and thank you for all of the work that you're doing with Islamic Library Association. I mean, it is a lot what you do, from traveling to all those conferences and things like that, and like bringing all of these different authors and highlighting us and our voices. I appreciate it so much.
Inshallah.
And I think it's amazing that you exist and you're doing this work. Like I would have never known. And like the things that you've talked to me about it with the trying to promote equity and stuff, it's such important work for our community. And inshallah, it's going to have a huge impact.
Oh, alhamdulillah, inshallah. But you're an actual author, so I couldn't do what I do if you don't do what you do. So that's how that works. We all need each other. It takes a village.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, you're gonna be just instrumental, like in the future, for getting all of our voices heard in those spaces that we still don't have access to. Most of us don't.
Yeah, definitely. But inshallah, I really appreciate it. And please keep us updated on any new things you end up coming up doing, anything you complete, anything you want to just add or talk about. Please stay in touch. And we look forward to seeing what you come out with soon, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Join the Islamic Library Association, and together we can shape a more inclusive future for literature.